Hey guys, Stealth here. Today not with a gameplay video, but with more of a how-to/guide video about reading the map. Now, with reading the map, I mean reading the situation and especially the terrain. How can you use the terrain to your advantage? It is probably the most important skill you can have in Wargame, whether it's Wargame, European Escalation, Ireland Battle, or Red Dragon. So this video will probably be suitable for all of those games. Now, I automatically do this because I've played probably hundreds of games by now. And if I'm looking at a map, I'm going, okay, where can I use what unit? Okay, I have a town here. What is this town structured like? It has a couple of blocks. It has some outbuildings here. It has buildings here. And by now I already have a plan which unit I want to put where. That is the skill which will get you to win matches, because that's the skill which will make sure that your units are in the best possible location. Now, I'm not saying there's one right way to do it. There are multiple ways to win a battle, but this is the way I do it. Now let's take this town for example. This town has a nice overwatch on both of these sides of the field. Over here it can fire ATGMs. Over here it can fire ATGMs, and if you put some AA units in this building, it can defend against the entire oncoming air threat. Now, how exactly do you structure that? Well, in my situation I would put a recon unit here, or actually here, because this way it has a little bit more recon, both to the left and to the right, and something to the front, although it will bounce into this bush red soon. Put ATGMs in this building. These can fire all the way out into this area, depending on the range, of course. This is about 2600, I think. You have 2200 for the RBS 56, the Scandinavian anti-tank weapons, and then 1000 for the Erics. And even closer at 525 you have the close range law weapons. Now, I would put recon here. I would put an ATGM on this side, an ATGM on that side. Possibly AA here in this building. This way the AA can cover these ATGMs. And some standard recon or standard infantry right here. This way that if anything comes too close, and you can usually find the AI and sometimes even players just pushing up this road as fast as they can, they then come into the range of this infantry. Preferably shock infantry, because they usually carry more anti-tank weapons and they have a machine gun. These will then take out the vehicle and take out the infantry afterwards. The same thing can be done on this side. You can have another group of ATGMs in here to cover this side, or use these buildings. Now this is reading the map as far as urban areas are concerned. If this entire urban area wouldn't be here, and let's assume for the time that it isn't, it's just an empty field. How could you defend this area? Well, you could use these bushes. These small strips of forest can be used to hide tanks or ATGMs. And a combination of these would be ideal. If you would have a tank in here, an ATGM next to it so it can defend this road, and then a SPOG such as the Jeopard. For those of you who don't know the term SPOG, it stands for self-propelled anti-air gun, which means it's one of those quick-firing anti-air guns. But the game term for that is SPOG, self-propelled anti-air gun. If you have a SPOG here, it can cover this area. If you have recon in these bushes, it means that if this group gets attacked, they will not be spotted and they will not take fire. They can overwatch the entire area as well. So recon, a tank, a SPOG or ATGM vehicle, a SPOG here. Just make sure you have one SPOG, or depending on what you're facing, two, although that might be overkill. And then a little to the back here I'd have an anti-G or an anti-air missile launcher, such as for NATO the Piphawk 3, or a Buck, which you could use for the Russians. Now this is reading the map. This is how can I deploy my forces so that they're best suited for an encounter. Of course, I could only put a ATGM vehicle in here, but then if there's a unit coming down, such as an APC, it comes down the road, it takes fire, it gets taken out right here. That means that usually some infantry will survive. Now you can take them out with a SPAG, but what happens when your ATGM runs out of fire? If it runs out of missiles, you cannot take out the vehicles anymore. The SPAG can take out the infantry, but it cannot take out the vehicle 9 times out of 10. So that's why you want to have a tank here as well. Now, do you use the M1A1 HC Abrams? No, that's too expensive. But you can use one of the cheaper tanks. And in this case the M60 ERA comes to mind. A standard Leopard 2 for 80 points would do the job. And possibly even a Leopard 1A5 at 60 points. Now, let's continue. What else can we see about this map? I'm coming in from this side, by the way. I'm coming in from Charlie. We have this town over here. This town is going to be very important because I can position anti-air launchers in here, such as anti-airborne, such as AA missiles carried by infantry. I can use these buildings to block line of sight for tanks. So I can put a SPAG in here, have it drive out when it comes across an air threat, and then get right behind these buildings again, because these will break line of sight. And if a SPAG is hiding here, of course it cannot fire, but it can also not take fire from tanks. So this is a good hiding spot for your vehicles. Now over here to the left, how would I deal with the situation? I would have a recon unit in these bushes. I could put them in here, but this is a road and it's usually quite a busy road in this map. Exceptional optics stealth units such as sniper teams might be able to survive, but otherwise I would put my recon in here, where they still have a very good line of sight on this road here to the east, and they can do so safely without being detected. Of course there is this road, but if you put some recon in here and a tank or two in here, they can keep this entire road clear. You could try to capture these buildings, although they are not spaced very handily, so very useful. I mean, if these things were side by side, so you'd have one zone like this and one zone like that, it would be better. Why? Well, because now you have this building blocking line of sight for this building. Luckily, this is one big zone, so you can still put units in here and they will fire from this building. But they will still block off line of sight if something comes from this side. Now I would use these buildings again with infantry. Standard infantry in here, because if something comes steaming down this road it will take fire from ATGMs out here. But at some point they'll be too close, and that is when your standard infantry with their anti-tank weaponry can do the job. I'd also try to have some anti-air in either this building or this one. Those are usually two-man teams, which are very easy to kill. So having them in the back will make sure that they can still fire at air threats. And as you can see, these buildings aren't too high, so they won't be blocking line of sight too much. You can still fire up at the sky, but you will not take as much fire. These bushes I could use to put some tanks in. Again, support with this push here, if there's a push coming from this side. And these could also be used to put some vehicles such as fire support vehicles. Those are usually recognized in the vehicle tab by FSV, standing for fire support vehicle, or tank destroyers which still use a gun, such as for the Germans the Marder VTS, or even recoilless rifles such as the Americans have, the South Koreans use them. They can be used at a 1700 meter range mostly, which means that if something comes too close here, they're going to take recoilless rifle fire. And since recoilless rifles in vehicles only cost 10 points to bring in, they're really cheap to replace, and they can really earn their value back quite quickly. Now if I zoom out here, you see that I have Charlie here, but there's a huge area of the map here which is not used. If the engagement goes on here and here, then what the hell will you do with all this area? Well, this would be an ideal area to bring in planes in. Such as you bring a plane in here, you want to bomb something, let's say, you want to bomb something here. I could fly, and this is what you see many beginning players do, call in the aircraft and just tell it to attack this area. And the aircraft goes, okay, I'll do that. I'll come in from Charlie, fly over Bravo, fly over these forests, and usually get shot down. Why? Well, because this is usually an area where you will see AA. These areas, if I would be coming from this side, I would defend with infantry, self-propelled anti-air guns such as the Jeopard, and then a little further to the back right here I'd have a line of Rolands, depending on how far my front line is. But anyway, your plane comes in, it comes in, it comes in, and then it goes down without bombing anything, and you lose ranging from 50 to 150 points. Much better would be to read the map, think, hey, I got this large open area. They probably haven't defended that. You send in your plane, you have it fly manually, you have to micromanage it, you click here, it'll fly over this road, then you click here, and then you have it come in from the side. This is usually an area which is less defended. Now you could also use helicopters with special forces to fly in. Please make sure you offload your special forces somewhere either in this open stretch and have them walk from here on out, or deploy them here if you can get this far. Do not deploy them here. I've seen people do this, and this means that these special forces are effectively out of the fight. They cannot do anything. They cannot see anything, they cannot shoot anything, and the only thing they're going to be good for is a long walk. Because they're going to be going all the way over this mountain, and that's a long way to walk for these special forces, even if they're doing 30 kph. Go through this forest and then they can go around this side of the map, try to come in from the rear of this reinforcement zone and try to take out the command vehicle. Now you can also do the same thing on the other side of the map, and I have done so before. Especially training this against the AI will make you very adept at doing this. One time, a couple of matches ago, I was training myself to do this. I had Echo. I brought in a couple of recon units. I'm not sure, it was the American side. I think Rangers. Rangers with a couple of Delta Force to support them against infantry. So I just flew those choppers all the way over these mountains / hills, all the way across this forest and hills, and I offloaded them here. Now normally, if you'd sent them directly over these lines, again you'd encounter a SPAG, an anti-air missile, whether it's fired from an infantry unit or from a vehicle, and you'd just be taken down. Having them go all the way around here, they were much safer, and they safely landed here, hiked through these forests, hopped over this road as quickly as they could, made their way through these forests, took out the command vehicle, and I won the game. Now, if you can read the map like that, thinking, hey, I can use helicopters to send over this area, then keep in mind that you're not the only one who can think of this. Bet your money that these tactics will also be used by your opponents. So what you can do is park some recon out here, such as an infantry unit, a cheap infantry recon unit that is. You could park a helicopter here, just for spotting these sides of your lines. If you don't, you're going to be faced with special forces harassing your lines, harassing your infantry, taking over your FOB, all sorts of nasty stuff you don't want to happen. Now there's one category of vehicles which I haven't really covered yet, and that's tanks. I use tanks mostly as a defensive weapon or as an offensive weapon later on in the game. Now please don't be the guy who sends their 170 point tanks down this road, puts them on attack move or move fast and hopes that they will make it to this line. That will never happen. A 170 point tank is basically a big sign on tracks which says shoot me please, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Because the enemy can have ATGMs in these forests, they can have ATGMs here, They can bring in a helicopter, they can bring in an ATGM plane, and any of those vehicles or units will wreck your tank very quickly. Instead, it's much better to try and push your way to one of the sides. Now, I would not recommend pushing into Foxtrot with a tank or tanks. Always use them in groups. 2 are best. In case you're really desperate and you want to get a defense up quickly, you can use a group of 4. But keep in mind that a group of 4 is of course a lot more vulnerable to cluster bombs, helicopters, artillery and the likes. Anyway, would I push up here to Foxtrot with a tank? Hell no. Look at this town. All sorts of clusters, buildings, ATGMs. When I'm starting from this side, I'm always going, ooh, look at this town. ATGMs here, ATGMs here, anti-air missiles here. Standard infantry here next to the road, standard infantry here to cover this open patch, possibly infantry here, recon in these bushes, and you have a solid defense. Don't try to send a tank up here without giving it cover or without smoking this town using mortars or infantry. Artillery. So in this map it would be much more useful to try and come in with your tanks from this side. Here they do have a town, but it's a lot less buildings. They're more spread out. They're positioned in a column, basically. As you can see, all of these things are behind each other, whereas right here in Foxtrot, they're next to each other. These are large stretches of buildings next to each other. Here you can have, with these 5 and these 2, 7. These are not separate buildings. You can have 7 groups of infantry, and in the worst case ATGMs firing at you. Do not use that. Do not go there with a tank. Here the situation is a bit different. You can use ATGMs here if you were defending this area, but ATGMs here and here would be less effective because this building would be in the way a lot. You can use ATGMs in this building, but they're out of the way. You can use ATGMs here, but this is not ideal because if some push of more than 5 or 6 vehicles comes up, they will overwhelm your defenses. And that's exactly what makes this area a lot more suitable for tanks. Tanks are always to be in cover. If they're not on the move, they're to be in cover. So, which means that if you're going to push up this way with tanks, let's say they come in from Charlie, they take this road to this side. Right here, they have cover from these trees. They move up, cover from these trees. You can then push them up to this side, cover from these trees. Next, you're going to have a large stretch to cover. So this is where I would smoke this village. Just use the launch smoke option on your artillery to blind these ATGMs. Push in with your tanks, push in with your infantry, clear out the town, and then push in with your tanks onto this side, because this area is harder to defend. See, ATGMs in buildings are quite difficult to root out with a tank, but taking down an ATGM carrier such as a vehicle is a one-shot operation for a tank. It only has to fire 1 shell at the vehicle and 9 times out of 10 they'll just go down. So that's why this stretch of land would be more suitable for tank warfare. Come in from this road, use this cover here, defend against these ATGMs with smoke, smoking this town out or firing an artillery bombardment. If you're red 4, you could also use a, what are they called, the napalmers, the Buratinos. You can napalm this town. Napalm does 2 things for you. It will panic the infantry, it will try to kill the infantry, and it will pop up a lot of thick black smoke which covers up the view from that side. And that's when you can push in with napalm tanks and then your standard heavy tanks. So this is how I read a map, and I've done this hundreds of times, and right now for me it becomes second nature. And it's so bad that I even do it outdoors. When I'm just, say, driving in the car and I see a group of trees, because sometimes you'll have that next to the highway, you see a group of trees like this, and I'm going, that's a nice position for an ATGM. Really, it gets that bad when you've done it this much. You could say I've played the game too much, but I really like this game, as you might have noticed from all of the videos I'm putting up. So if you do this a lot, you'll get used to this. You'll get used to reading the map, seeing the possibilities, and trying to exploit them to the best of your ability. Now, one final remark I wanted to make is play to your strengths. If I'm using a deck such as an airborne deck, which focuses heavily on helicopter warfare and infantry warfare, because they will rarely, if any, have any tanks, then I have no place trying to push through Alpha. My place would be to hold Bravo with my infantry. This is a nice area for helicopters and planes to operate in. I could try to push all the way around either this side of the map with helicopters or the other side, and that's playing to your strengths. If I was using tanks, then I would try to take these bushes with tanks, put some tanks in these small lines of forest, try and put some tanks here, have the enemy come to me, and then mop up whatever is left. If I was playing a motorized deck, which is a recon deck, I would use my recon to try and spot whatever area is weak. Where don't they seem to have a lot of forces? Where can I push my vehicles through? And by playing to your strengths this way, you can use your deck to the best of its ability. Do not try to force your deck into doing something it simply is not good at, because you'll only get yourself destroyed, you'll only lose the match, you'll be frustrated with the game and thinking, what the hell did I do wrong this time? I hate this game, I'm not playing it anymore. The only thing you have to blame for that is yourself. Play to your strengths, read the map, see what you can use, and win the game. This is how I do it. It takes some training, but it's a skill you can learn. So be patient, keep reading the map. If you want to talk over a map with me, that's fine. I'm available on Steam, I'm available in the game. We'll just go on a TeamSpeak server and you can just tell me what you see on the map. Where would you put which unit? So if you want to do that, leave a comment below or add me in the game or on Steam. My name is Stealth17. Just add me, we'll try and train you up and have you win more battles. Thanks for watching, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please hit like. If you have a suggestion on how you would use units here, or if you have a question, leave it in the comments below and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for watching and see you in another video.